We are thrilled to welcome New York Times and USA Today bestselling author Laura Kaye to talk about her
Hi,
newest
everybody.
title for 1001 Dark Nights, Heart is Steel. It is the Hard Ink Raven Writers crossover novella, which is super exciting.
That's right.
She's also the author of my personal favorite, Hearts in Darkness, and her Forbidden Hero, which is a part of the Heroes series. Laura not only writes contemporary, but also paranormal and fantasy romance as well. Welcome to BookTrib Live, Laura.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Oh, we are excited to have you. So tell us a little bit about Hard as Steel and where we're at this point in the Hard Ink series.
Okay. Heart of Steel is a friends to lovers story between Ike Young and Jessica Jakes. They're both co-workers at the Harding Tattoo Studio where the Harding series is set. And Jessica has just realized that she has seen one of the bad guys and can identify him, which is why they ransacked her house trying to find her. And so Ike is taking her away to keep her safe while the very end of the Harding series conflict plays out.
Oh, very exciting. And is that how it
Yeah.
crossovers with Raven Riders?
Yeah, so Ike is a Ravens, and he is working at the Harding Tattoo. In the Harding series, you don't really know why he's there on behalf of the motorcycle club. That
Okay.
will come out more in this story and in the series as a whole. But he takes her to his cabin, which is on the compound of the Raven Riders, about 45 minutes outside of Baltimore, where the Harding series is set. And that's where he takes her to protect her from this threat.
Okay. So fans of both definitely want to check out this novella. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the fun thing is that you're still squarely in the hard ink world, but it gives you a really good introduction to the Raven Riders. It gives you an introduction to the setting. It gives you an introduction to some of what the Raven Riders are about because they're not exactly your typical motorcycle club.
Right.
And it gives you an introduction to some of the characters that you're going to see in the new series.
Very cool. That's so exciting. Did you feel
Yeah.
like writing the novella was any different or challenging maybe in any way from the other Hard Ink or Raven Riders books that you've written?
Well, this is the first of the introduction to the Raven Riders. So the challenging thing was how to recap the big plot that is the Hard Ink series in a manageable way and introduce something new at the same time. And I think the other thing about it that was fun and not really challenging is because they were removed from the main part of the fight in the Hard Ink series. I could really concentrate on the romance, and things get super, super hot between this couple, and I just adored writing it.
Oh, that's so exciting. Did you feel
Yeah.
any pressure maybe writing it because it was a part of the 1001 Dark Nights project or maybe getting it right for the fans? Was there any kind of pressure there?
Well, I mean, yeah, I think there's some of that with every book, right? Because you want the fans to be happy and you want them to love what you've written as much as you loved writing it. I think that the added pressure with 1001 Dark Nights is I'm working with this amazing group of authors. I mean, just a stellar, stellar lineup, and I'm really privileged and proud to be a part of it. And certainly, want my book to rank right up there with the other great reads that the series is producing.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you talked to, maybe hung out with any of those authors that you just spoke about, or any that you still want to meet or hang out with? Have you guys gotten together with any of those 1001 Dark Night people?
Well, one of the things that's really fun for me about this series is that a lot of my good friends are writing for it. And in fact, just this past weekend was the Baltimore Book Festival, and participating along with me in that event was Jennifer L. Armentrout, was Carrie
Oh,
Ann
love
Ryan,
it.
was Tessa Bailey. So, it's fun to be able to not only work with really good people, but really good people
Right.
who are your friends. And
Yeah.
the series is really good about doing events to bring us together so that we can get to know each other, because a big part of the idea here is to cross promote one another. And everybody's just fantastic.
That's so great.
Yeah.
Can you maybe give us a little background into how you got into writing, what made the ultimate decision for you to become an author, a little bit of that?
Yeah, sure. I had a really strange entree into writing, actually. I was a college history professor. I wrote nonfiction as part of, my job doing that. And in the summer of 2008, I had a traumatic brain injury, and as I healed from that, two things happened. One, I read the Twilight series while I was healing. And the second was that I had, in the wake of the injury, a really, really strong creative urge. And those two things kind of came together, and I started writing a book. I just started. I outlined first, which I no longer do, but then, the story was so much in my head that I just had to get it down on paper however I could. So I outlined the whole thing. And then I spent the next about 4 weeks writing, and at the end of that, I had a giant mess of a book, but I had my first book. And after that, it just totally changed who I was and what I wanted to do, and even a little bit of how my brain worked, and there was no going back at that point.
Interesting. Now, you talked about the outline being a part of your process. At what point did you decide to change that, and maybe why? How did you find that you didn't need it anymore?
I think the first time out, it was, clearly impacted some by the head injury. I mean, this idea was so alive and so dominant in my head. I couldn't write it fast enough to get it out. And so that was part of why I outlined. The outline was a monster. It was like 20 single space pages of just this is what's going to happen. And I actually stuck fairly close to it. And the irony is, I don't really outline at all anymore. Starting with the second book, the first I wrote was a vampire romance called Forever Freed, and the second book that I wrote was Hearts in Darkness. And Hearts in Darkness just came to me as a what happens if two strangers get trapped in a pitch black elevator, and I just wrote that. I didn't sketch it out. I didn't really think much about it. I just dove in, and that was really what my process stayed after that book. I will say that with writing the suspense that I, came to write in the Harding series, and that will continue to be part of the Raven Rider series, it's a little harder to wing that. And so I've done more plotting with the Harding series than I have with a lot of my other stuff. But I mean, I'm talking like the back of a Panera napkin. In fact, the bottom of my laptop bag is old plotting napkins. Plotting napkins that where I sketch these things out. And I have notebooks that I write ideas, and I write my research notes down in and things. What I love about writing is the same process of discovery that readers have when they read. And so as much as of that as I can keep fresh and new is how I like to do it.
So interesting. The idea of where authors get their inspiration for their stories, because I think everyone has a different idea or a different way of coming up with what they're going to write. And you find that they just come to you. You just know what you want to write.
Yeah, I mean, to some extent, I think that all kinds of things can inspire me. I'm very inspired by music, both the tone and the atmosphere of music, and also lyrics. Sometimes a particular lyric will set up a whole thing. Skylar Grey, her song, Love the Way You Lie, has a line about how you'll always be my hero even though you've lost your mind. And that inspired a lot of Marco Vieri's character in the book Her Forbidden Hero. Just that one line and an idea sort of set off. And so I'm very inspired by that. I'm very inspired by driving. I don't know what it is about the act of driving that just empties my mind and allows things to percolate, but that's always really useful for me. News stories that you hear, overheard snippets of conversation, lots of things can inspire, but where the actual idea of a book comes from, I don't always know. Sometimes it is just there, and sometimes it's just a character lurking in the back of your head, and you don't know who he is or what he's about or what his story is, and over time it comes together.
Huh. Now, what happens if you come up with these ideas when you are driving? Do you have to pull over and jot them down right away, or the second you get to your destination, you have to say, "Oh, I have to write all of that down"? Or do you just keep it logged?
A little of both. I have a kind of a crazy good memory, and the writing part of my brain seems to be able to keep stuff cataloged fairly well. But I do have an ideas notebook, and there are some things that I just know because of what I'm already committed to write, or because of how little I yet know about the idea.
Right.
There are some things that are a way out.
Okay.
And those I obviously want to write down because who knows when I'll have a chance to come back to them.
Okay. Now, as far as all of the ideas that you do get, it sounds like you come up with so many. Do you ever find that you go in order of when you come up with them? Or, I mean, could you be writing on something that you thought of yesterday, whereas the idea you came up 4 years ago, you're still trying to get done?
Yeah, I have a series idea I've been sitting on for over a year that I am dying to get to. And it made more sense to do the spin-off of the Harding series next because that was still in that same world, and those characters had been introduced, at least some, in the Harding books. So it made lots of sense to stick with them. But I have a series that has been fully, sort of book blurbs are written, titles are picked, characters are sketched out for well over a year that I just can't wait to get to. But I'm guessing it's going to be 2017 before the first of those comes out. So it can sometimes happen that way.
Okay. What about, since you're in so many different genres, do you have a favorite one to write for, or one maybe that you find is easier than the other?
I write mostly contemporary with some suspense. I will say suspense is the hardest thing, hands down. When I was writing the Harding series and I was in the middle of it, and because I'm not a plotter and there were lots of things that I didn't know exactly how they were going to work out, I had tons of respect for people who write suspense all the time because it's tough. You want to get the suspenseful beats right. You want to keep the tension high. You want to reveal things at the right time. You want to make the big reveal really meaningful. And that was a really big challenge for me. And it pushed me in ways that I think were really good for my writing. Contemporary has its own set of challenges. You need conflict that people can believe in. Right. You want characters that people will be sympathetic to and maybe even feel like are real people they could know. And then, of course, on the paranormal side, you have all the world building. So that's its own set of challenges. I can say I look forward to the day when I can come back to writing vampires again because they were my first love as a reader and a writer. And I would love to be able to get back to a vampire story again. But it's not in my immediate future, but it's definitely on the back burner.
Oh, okay. So we look forward to that then.
Yeah.
We're building up a little questions down below us here, and I'd actually like to get to a couple. On the favorites train, do you have, of all of your books, Tony wants to know, do you have a favorite?
This is always a really, really hard question to answer. I think the hero that in some ways I most identify with is Marco Vieri from Her Forbidden Hero, which makes Her Forbidden Hero one of my favorites. I gave Marco the brain injury that I myself went through, and I think that the amount of myself that I put in that, and I think there's authors put some of themselves in every single book. Absolutely. But the emotion of that really resonates with me in very personal ways, and so that would have to be one of my favorites. I am really, really in love with the book that I'm writing right now, which is Ride Hard, which is the first full-length book in the Raven Riders series. And it actually has, I so adored writing the Harding series that there was a part of me that was frankly scared. Like, what if I don't love the next thing as much as I loved this? And the Harding series came to its natural conclusion. It's not a series that can just continue to go on and on. Okay. And I have been surprised and just beyond pleased at how much I am loving the Raven Riders as a group of people and this book in particular.
Oh. So it's certainly coming alive for you off of the page.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was what I loved about the Hard Ink series was that these were real people in my head. It was a real place. I live 35 minutes from Baltimore City, and I would think about them being there, and it felt weird to imagine that they actually weren't.
Right.
And the Ravens are coming alive for me that same way.
Okay. Liz Berry would like to know, can you tell us about the nickname that Christopher Rice has given you?
No, I cannot. I do not know. So somehow Christopher Rice, Damon Suede got together, came up with this Duchess nickname. I don't know. You'll have to ask them. Somebody actually made a meme. Don't make a meme about the Duchess. I don't know. It's embarrassing and beyond sweet, and Liz is a very bad girl for asking. And I know secrets about you, Liz.
Uh-oh, Liz, watch out. Okay, we'll do one more and then we'll get back to a couple more at the end. Jillian would like to know, how excited are you for your new series?
I am really excited about it. I was intimidated a little at first, and now that the book is almost done, I am so excited. And now the problem is, motorcycle clubs are big groups of people. That means there's lots of potential characters. That means there's lots of potential books. I've sold 3. I have 5 books plotted out, or at least sketched out. Again, I don't really do full-on plotting, but I know what the book is generally going to be about. Beyond that, I don't know yet, and I'm just hoping that I'll follow the reader's lead on this.
Okay. All right. So you take suggestions or maybe listen to what your readers have to say as far as who they like, don't like, story, plot lines. You're involved in that way with what they think?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that is how the book Hard to Be Good in the Hard Ink series came about. Hard to Be Good was the romance between Jeremy Rixey, who was a tattoo artist at Hard Ink Tattoo and was the brother of the leader of the Special Forces guys. And Charlie Merritt was the brother of the first heroine of that series, and they end up getting a romance in Hard to Be Good. And that book exists in its entirety because readers wanted Jeremy's story. And I was game to do it. I wanted to tell it. My publisher was totally on board with it. And so, yeah, I totally followed what the readers wanted there. And, there's a character in, Hard as Steel. His name is Slider, and he's given a very brief backstory. And I've already had people asking me when Slider is getting his book. And Slider is not one of the 5 guys that I had originally sketched out for a book. But I already know Slider's going to have a book. And that's just because of the role that he's, playing now in the series, and also the interest that I'm getting in him as a character.
Okay. What about, I read on your site, you talk about your family lore and angels, ghosts, curses, how that all plays into your writing. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I grew up in a family that totally believed in the supernatural. Friday nights for me growing up were big family dinners around my grandmother's kitchen table where people talked about all the different haunting things that had happened in their respective houses all week.
That's awesome.
Almost everyone in my family had some sort of haunting stories. And my grandmother believes that an angel came to visit her when she was pregnant with my mother. And I mean, that was part of the fabric of my family growing up. And it predisposed me for sure to be interested in the supernatural. It predisposed me for sure to being interested in storytelling and in, imagination. And I was a huge reader of the supernatural from as young as I can possibly remember. And in part, it was because of the strange things that happened in our family.
That's so interesting. I love that. Um, it seems like also a very specific world, the paranormal and fantasy. Can you maybe give some advice to aspiring authors or authors who are looking to maybe jump into that genre as to how they can get started?
Well, I think one of the things that you can do, and I would give this advice to any aspiring author wanting to write just about anything, is to read widely in what it is you want to write. Find examples of where you think authors do something particularly well and study how they do it. I feel like a lot of what I learned about male dialogue and writing male point of view, especially, the sort of adrenaline kick-ass males that I write, I feel like I learned a lot of it from reading J.R. Ward. I mean, it is my natural voice, and I think that's also why her words resonate with me so much as a reader. But I think you can find places where somebody else does something very well and study how you might make that your own in your own series, in your own story. I think the other thing is that you should write what you love. And if what you love is vampires, ignore the commentary that might be in the market right now saying that, vampires are dead or paranormal's not selling as well, and write the vampires you love. Because if you write something that you love, it comes through in the writing. If you write something that you're not passionate about, I think that comes through in the writing too. Absolutely. So those would be two things that I would say.
Great advice. Yes, thank you for that. Do you have any books that are really close to your heart that you've written, or I know we touched on which one was your favorite, but maybe something for a personal reason that is just very sticks out more to you, maybe even if it was from the writing process?
I mean, I have favorites, but it's really hard for me to pick one out. When people ask me what my favorite book is, I usually answer with J.R. Ward's Lover Awakened. And it's because that book has the biggest redemptive arc of any romance I've ever read for a hero. Okay. And that really resonates with me because of the depth of pain that she put on the page. Resonates with me as a reader and as a fellow writer. And knowing that she herself cannot reread that book because of how much of her own emotion she put on that page, it gets to me. I mean, it gets to me as both a reader and a writer.
That's amazing. And do you use any of that as your own inspiration?
Well, I mean, in the years before I started writing, I had a whole series of losses. My mother died, my grandmother died, I had a miscarriage, I had a very close friend commit suicide, and I didn't go into writing to explore that at all. And in fact, it took me quite a few books to realize that my characters very often are dealing with grief. Okay. And so I have found that even when I'm not fully conscious of it, I am pulling from my own life, in addition to all those other things that, sometimes inspire me as well. Mm-hmm. And so I think we're all putting things on the page, sometimes more and less consciously, that that come from our own lives. And, I know for sure that I have done it.
Right. I'd love to talk about Hearts in Darkness because it's such a fantastic premise. I absolutely self-proclaimed love the book. It was too short, so I'm hoping for a follow-up. I think I read somewhere that there's a little something coming. Can you maybe tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the follow-up book is coming. I know I've been promising this for a couple of months now, and I haven't wanted to commit to a new date after I had to move the initial date that I was hoping to release this summer. The follow-up is going to be called Love in the Light. I am tentatively looking at mid-November. I am going to drop it on people fairly quickly because I don't want to have to announce a date and change it on everybody again. But I'm super excited about the way that it's coming together, and I'm also crazy nervous about doing this because when I finished Hearts in Darkness, that was it. There was never meant to be more. Okay. I knew what happened to them. I had ideas about what happened to them, but that was all it ever was. It was a happy for now that, I knew where it went. But that was the book. And people wanted more,
Mm-hmm.
but there wasn't a solid story. I mean, I knew generally what happened, but it needed to be a story that was good enough to follow up this unique, like once in a lifetime kind of premise.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to mess it up. You know, I would rather readers be like, I wanted more, will you write more, than you should have left it how it was. Like, that terrifies me as a writer. But when the premise came to me for what this story would be, it felt big enough to do the first book justice, and that's what I'm hoping that readers will find.
Okay. Is this going to be a full length, or do you not want to say that yet?
It's not full length. It's not going to be a full length, but it is going to be longer than the first one.
Okay. All right. So mid-November, start keeping our eyes open. I'm getting very excited.
And I'm telling you that the new cover is as phenomenal as the original one.
Now I'm even more excited. That's awesome.
Right?
Is there anything that you can let us in on besides that sequel, maybe of upcoming projects or anything you're currently working on?
Well, a lot of my attention is going to be focused on the Raven Riders series in the months to come. I'm also writing a follow-up wedding novella for the Harding series called Hard Ever After, which, love the title. It makes me chuckle every time. That's going to be January 19th, and it's Becca and Nick's wedding story. I have another series called The Warrior Fight Club, which will be coming out in 2016, which is a series based on real-life organization that uses MMA training to help veterans having difficulties adjusting to civilian life or dealing with PTSD make those transitions. So that series will be coming out with at least 3 books in 2016 as well.
Okay.
And I'm also writing historical fiction. My debut historical fiction called America's First Daughter, which is about Thomas Jefferson's daughter with his wife, Martha. The woman's name was Martha Jefferson Randolph. That book, America's First Daughter, is coming out March 1st. So I'm also really jumping out of the romance genre in the spring with that title.
Okay. Well, congratulations on that. We're excited to check that out. That's for sure.
Yeah, lots of fun things going on.
Absolutely. Anissa would like you to know that you're an absolute inspiration to her. And Jillian wants to know, will you ever get the Raven Riders symbol tattooed?
Well, thank you to Anissa, because that is just an amazing thing to hear. You know, so the Raven Rider symbol is a raven perched on the handle of a knife, which is buried in the eye socket of a skull. So that particular symbol might be a little masculine for me, although I think it's super cool. However, there is a tattoo, a raven tattoo, that women who become old ladies in the club get. And I am already thinking about that, and no, Jillian, I'm not yet telling you what that is.
You've got to read to find out. I love that.
That's right.
Stephanie is asking, other than J.R. Ward, who else do you like to read?
You know, I like to read pretty widely. I love Tessa Bailey stuff. I think she writes the best dirty talking heroes that there are. I really enjoy Jennifer L. Armentrout's stuff, both her new adult. I especially love her new adult, and she's got a new one, Forever With Me, out today that is on my Kindle, and I'm dying to get to. And Jennifer Probst, I adored her Searching for Beautiful book. You know, I read a lot of contemporary. I also flippin' love Scottish Highlanders. I mean, I cannot get enough. My favorite are Maya Banks's McCabe trilogy is my favorite of the Highlander books. And I've reread that one a couple of times. So I read a lot in a lot of different stuff, and pretty much what I just need is characters to love.
Yeah, I think we all do. As long as we can have that, a little bit of that.
That's what hooks me.
Yep. Same here. Maya Banks, she's another one that I absolutely love, so I'm there with you. We have just a little bit of time left, and I'd love to do rapid fire with you.
Okay.
So we'll jump right in. Erotica or paranormal for what would you rather read?
Erotica.
Hardcover or paperback?
Paperback.
Ebooks or hard copy?
Ebooks.
When you write a book, longhand or typing?
Typing for sure.
Writing at night or during the day?
Night. I'm a night owl.
What about writing in a private setting or public, like Starbucks or something like that?
Totally cannot pick because I write during the day in a Panera and I write at home alone in my office. So it's 50-50.
Okay. If you could jump into one of your books, which one would you want to be a character in?
Well, I want to exist in the Hard Ink world. I want to live with these guys. I want to live at Hard Ink and shoot the shit with Mars and laugh with Jeremy and watch Easy Run on the treadmill all day. And I don't know which book it would be, but that's the series that I would step into if I could.
That's awesome. I love that. Well, unfortunately, though I would like to keep going, we are out of time for today, Laura, and I can't thank you enough for joining us and being a part of this edition of BookTrib Live.
Well, I had a great time, so thanks so much for having me.
Thank you, and you guys enjoy your night. Bye.
All right, bye guys.